The Mew VMAX deck, Mew Genesect, is one of the most vile combos in the Fusion Strike era of the Pokemon TCG. And as we move into Brilliant Stars, it's still going to continue to dominate the game. And, as someone who has played against the deck many times and lost the vast majority of these matches, it's incredibly frustrating to lose to Mew because of how many different tools it has available and how many options it has, how hard it hits. And there are times where, depending on the deck that I'm playing, I'll just leave. I see that they mulliganed on a turn, I see it's a Mew deck, and I just leave because I know I'm going to lose. However, the Mew deck is not invincible. There are things that you can do to adapt your decks to work a little better against Mew, and there's certain things you can, either adapting your existing deck or playing different decks. In certain cases, you might have to play a different deck, but there are certain things you can look at before you just quit the game and say, like, I'm never going to play Mew, or I'm going to just build the Mew deck. That's an option as well. You can just play Mew and it's pretty rad, at least at this point in time, but we'll get to that. I think one of the first things to think about, and maybe the easiest way to go about beating Mew, is play a dark deck, right? So Mew is weak to darkness type Pokemon, and one of the best at countering the Mew VMAX deck is Gengar. And what makes Gengar so strong is that it hits for Fear and Panic for only 2 darkness energy, 60 times the number of Pokemon V and VMAX. The Mew decks run 4 to 5 V Pokemon on the bench all the time. You're going to hit for 1 billion damage each time. And even Gengar V has the ability to one hit like 40, it's going to be 80. Pain Explosion for sure is going to knock out a Mew V or a Mew V Max, no problem. So you can do a ton of damage and up trade even with Gengar V in that particular match. But there are single prize Pokemon that do very well against Mew VMAX as well. One of them off the top of my head is Galarian Obstagoon, and this one right here from Fusion Strike, for 1 energy, if you're a Merciless Strike, if your opponent's active Pokemon already has any damage counters on it, this attack does 90 more damage. And you can set that up with, like, I guess to a certain extent, you got to get it in early with something like a Galarian Zigzagoon before the Fusion Strike energy comes out. Another popular deck that's gotten a lot of momentum is the Galarian Weezing Sableye deck. Again, Weezing is such a good card against Mew because you can apply 40 damage, it gets poison, and it shuts off abilities with this neutralizing gas ability. So with this, it just turns off all the Genesects, you get in 40 damage, and then with that Weezing Sableye deck, which we will cover on a future stream, Sableye does, with Crazy Claws, 2 darkness energy, 10 plus 60 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's Pokemon. This is going to obliterate Mew V and VMAX, like, no problem. This is an entirely different deck, but there are certain decks where you can just incorporate, like, a tech card, something like, say, a Morpeko. Yeah, Morpeko. This one, the single strike one, Explosive Discontent, where it does 30 damage times 30 for each damage counter on this Pokemon, and you get two single strike energy on here, and it has the ability to blow out a V, or I think it's the Pokemon V, and potentially can knock out a VMAX as well if you got a cape on there, and some other stuff, right? So you can up trade 1 to 3, or at least do a lot of damage with this Morpeko V as well if you're playing something like a single strike deck. So something like Urshifu Umbreon, for example. The Umbreon VMAX just shreds through Mew while also being able to boss up, as long as they don't have the fusion energy. Even not if they don't, you can hit around the Genesects or hit another Mew on the board. Again, this is another very strong card, and probably one of the best kind of like tech options where you can just kind of work around incorporating it into your deck and still do a lot of damage is Moltres. Galarian Moltres V this card right here. I mean, it's such a great card to begin with because of its Dire Flame Wings, where you can just attach a discarded dark energy to it. So you can get it online in like 2 turns. But this is going to one-hit KO a Mew VMAX, and you will uptrade, you know, your Galarian Moltres V's 2 prizes, Mew VMAX's 3, and there are a lot of decks, like even something like a Rapid Strike Urshifu, which is a horrible match for Urshifu to try and beat Mew. You incorporate the Moltres in there, and there are some deck lists out there that run both Moltres and Rapid Strike Urshifu in the same deck. I have one on my channel that you can see, but there's other lists on play.limitless TCG you can find as well, where you can just kind of work a Moltres in and just knock out Mew in one hit. And then going forward, it's looking like real bad news bears for Mew because of this pupper right here, Mightyena. Right, Mightyena is a card that, you know, a Pokemon that has like no history of being good in the Pokemon TCG, but it's getting this insane move called this insane move Hustle Bark, right? Where if your opponent has any Pokemon VMAX in play, this Pokemon's attacks cost 3 colorless less. So this move, Wild Tackle, which does 160 damage, 3 energy normally, if Mew VMAX is on the board, 0. You can just put, right, you've got the Poochyena on the board, Mew comes out, you just evolve into this, and then all of a sudden you're one-hit KOing Mew for free. And you don't have to build a dark deck to use it. If that move is free, you just pop it into your deck and then just run it out there and just kamikaze Mew. And I have a feeling this card in particular is going to be really bad for Mew in, you know, when it comes out, presumably in May. But for the time being, there are still other options in terms of like tech cards you can put in there as well, or Pokemon you can incorporate into your decks. Another one that is really good, well, pretty good, I would say, is Duraludon VMAX. And what makes Duraludon VMAX special is that Duraludon VMAX has the ability Skyscraper, which prevents it from getting hit by anything that uses special energy. Well, surprise, surprise, Mew VMAX uses lots of special energy. It's essential to the Mew game plan, which means that Mew can only hit with Max Miracle for 130, and it's going to take 3 turns for a Mew VMAX to knock out Duraludon, and Duraludon can knock out Mew VMAX in 2. Couple of other ones, right? Trainer cards. If you're not playing a deck that is, you know, where you can't incorporate Pokemon that just inherently counter Mew. Oh, there's one more Pokemon that we need to talk about here that you can work in. Beedrill. This homie right here, whether you evolve it all the way up or you use the mustard, I think it's Rapid Strike Mustard. Maybe it's Single Strike Mustard. One of the mustard cards, and we'll talk about that in a sec. This Beedrill for 1 energy, Persistent Sting, 1 grass energy. If your opponent's active Pokemon has any special energy attached to it, it is knocked out. You can knock out a Mew VMAX 1 hit with the Beedrill, and then all of a sudden now you uptraded for 2 extra prizes. And one of the ways to set that up is with a trainer called Mustard. Which one is it? It's Single Strike Mustard, right? You can only play it if it's the last card in your deck or in your hand. You search your deck for a Single Strike Pokemon and put it on your bench. So if you can empty out your hand, so you've only got the Mustard, you play that, put down the Beedrill, put on the energy, and then bang, you knock it out. Of course, some other great cards you can work with. The biggest one, easiest one, Path to the Peak. This is, of course, a card that shuts off all abilities from both Pokemon, from Pokemon on both sides, and this will shut off the Genesect's ability to draw more cards. There is also Crushing Hammer is huge because Mew runs very little energy. And if you can knock off, whether it's both of them are really bad. If you knock off the I think in particular, if you can knock off fusion energy, which they can't recover, at least at this point in time, this can spell doom from you. If you can hit like 2 hammers, oftentimes that's enough to just win the game. Some other cards in here, Fan of Waves. This one is another great one. You don't discard the energy, but you can take a special energy from your opponent, put it at the bottom of their deck, and Mew decks don't necessarily have a reliable way to get that energy back. All right, couple of other cards. I mean, trainers, everybody has Marnie in their hand, but that can be a way to disrupt them, especially if you know they've got something like an Alessa Sparkle ready to go, or whatever card or a Stadium to knock that off. Yeah, just Marnie away their hand. And some other cards that are coming up in future sets that are going to be a problem for Mew also include was it canceling clones? Not. This one's not. It was another one to have handy, and this is going to be a big card for everybody going forward, is Roxanne. And when a player has three or fewer prize cards left, you can play Roxanne. You will shuffle your hand into your deck. You will draw 6 cards, and the other player, the opposing player, will shuffle their hand into their deck, draw 2. Now, Genesect, I mean, in tandem with a Path to the Peak, this is going to crush Mew. But even if you don't have Path to the Peak, you can still force them down to 2 cards. Then they have to burn an extra Genesect, Fusion Strike system to draw more cards. They're still going to get to draw more cards, but they won't be drawing as many. Some other things you can do, like tactically, right? If you're playing against Mew VMAX and you know that they're going second, try and get your Pokemon V out of the active on that first turn, which isn't, because generally speaking, you want to have your Pokemon V in the active on the first turn, but against Mew, you kind of want to have it on the bench because Meloetta can knock that out in one hit, and you don't want to be down 2 prizes after the first turn of the game. So try and avoid that where you can. And in the moment, try and get Genesect on the board. Most Mew decks are not set up to have Genesect attack, and bossing up a Genesect can help you just stall for time if need be. So yeah, there's a couple things that you, as someone playing against Mew VMAX, can do to shut down Mew VMAX, or at least slow it down enough that you can steal a couple wins here and there. Again, with the release of Astral Radiance, there are more cards coming to help shut down Mew, and I suspect that Mew will be knocked off of its throne by that point. But for the time being, it is still a nightmare, and try your best with some of the tips here that we've discussed to shut Mew down.